Hello and good evening to you. Welcome to News at 10 on TV3, also live all across the world on 3news.com. Also on Facebook is TV3 Ghana. Live more news up here at Desawe in Kanda. My name is Alfred Okanse. Let's go on to the headlines of the stories that made the news tonight. The Accra Metropolitan Assembly has given a 48-hour ultimatum to persons engaged in any form of activity at unauthorized places at Old Fadama, popularly called, to vacate their premises or risk eviction. The Accra Metropolitan Chief Executive Mohammed Ajay Soa gave the warning at the inauguration of a community watch committee in the area. The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Hajia Alima Mahama, has warned regional ministers and chief directors not to use unavailability of funds as an excuse to underperform. At a performance signing contract in Accra, she challenged them to focus on revenue generation, particularly when government intends to decentralize the management of basic schools by regional chief directors and ministers in Accra. The management of the Ghana Free Zones Authority has defended the 10-year tax holiday enjoyed by companies. On free zones, business analysts have criticized the huge tax exemptions, which they argue undermines the country's revenue mobilization efforts. But according to the Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Michael Ochiri Befi, the country rakes in a lot more within the 10-year period. And the Bank of Ghana says it has granted license to 319 institutions across the country to finance the central, that's the microfinance institutions. And on international front, Kenya's president and opposition leader have promised to begin a process of reconciliation following last year's bitterly contested election. Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga called each other brothers during a surprise joint TV address. This is News at 10 here on TV3. Let's not settle for the big one tonight. The Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Joseph Kofi Adda, has placed the blame of the poor sanitation situation in Accra firmly on the doorstep of Zoomlion Ghana Limited. Joseph Kofi Adda accused the waste management company of failing to supervise the cleaning and collection of waste on a daily basis, a situation he says has led to the piling up of garbage in the capital.
At a sanitation stakeholder forum in Accra, the sector minister expressed disappointment at the shutdown of the Accra compost recycling plant, and describing the work of waste management company Zoomlion as unsatisfactory.
First of all, it's not a case that we're generating any waste more than we're generating before, but it is the fact that the waste is seen more visibly in public places. And I think it is the situation that comes out of Zoomlion not being able to deploy the workers on the streets regularly to sweep, clean, gather and transport the waste away from where they're supposed to be operating. I also think strongly that this arises out of the fact that he's taking the street sweepers on board as staff members, whereas they should have been left with the assemblies.
However, the executive chairman of the Jospon Group of Companies, Joseph Siao Ejepong, said Accra, compared to other African countries, is clean.
This is the equipment that we have. I said need because you've not moved to other African countries. When you move to Gambia and other things and you land in Accra, you think that Accra is a new landing for you. So sometimes when you are doing the benchmark, it's because you are here. Sometimes do the benchmark with other countries that you have visited. And where I have visited some countries and I say we are doing well. Even though we've not got it there, we are somewhere.
Joseph Siao Ejepong added, Ghana needs to graduate from landfill sites to composting. He revealed that 61% of the waste produced by the country is organic, a situation which can be monetized to boost revenue generation.
The key, composting is the key, the relative of work. We are supplying the compost to real estate, they are buying. Landfill, you can't get nothing from it. You get flies, leachate, and odor. Why do you go back? I think we should do what is best practice, more modern, more dignified, and more healthier for this country.
Speakers at the forum agreed constant collaboration between stakeholders and enforcement of sanitation laws are key in winning the fight against attitudinal change towards improved sanitation. Environmental consultant Kwame Asiedu Isubonting recommended a social revolution where Ghanaians will be conscientized to adopt best sanitary practices. The forum was on the theme Managing Sanitation, how to lift the nation from filth.
Let's stay with this a bit further because, Ghana is in a dire straits when it comes to sanitation. The country's streets and gutters are still littered with waste and unpleasant sights of pest-infested, stinking and overflowing waste collection containers are not uncommon in our market centers and suburbs. There is a perception in Ghana that punitive punishment is the only way to make the country clean. Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, seems to have achieved a clean and litter-free environment without the threat of harsh fines. This is a clear situation we're confronted. It keeps coming up. The conversation on sanitation is rather daunting. Joining us on the telephone is Atta Ahin, is a vice chair of the Coalition of Non-Governmental Organizations in Water and Sanitation, CONIWAS. Ms. Ahin, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Now, I mean, at this time when we have 2020 as a deadline to make Accra the cleanest city in Africa, we shouldn't be paying attention and wasting a lot of time on blame game, and then Zoomlion comes to describe us extremely incongruous what the minister is talking about, should we?
I agree with you. I agree with you perfectly. And I was quite surprised when I heard that from the minister. Let me admit that Zoomlion is not the only waste management company. Even in the capital city, Accra, there are others who are also into the business of waste management. So to lay the blame squarely at the doorstep of Zoomlion was for me difficult, to accept. But maybe the minister knows why he made that point and what he's seeing. I'm happy you mentioned Kigali as the cleanest city in Africa. My brother, let's ask ourselves, how did they achieve that? In 2008, they were able to ban non-degradable plastic. And it has gone a long way to sanitize their city. On the last Saturday of every month, people across the country commit time to projects which are aimed at improving the country's public spaces. And you see, they do this in a mandatory exercise, which they call Umuganda. Umuganda simply means coming together to achieve a common purpose. We are doing a similar thing, but we have not been able to make it mandatory. We have not been able to whip our people to practice what we are preaching. Of course, Kigali's success story came with a cost.
But
in terms of human rights abuses.
It's
but
interesting.
we can learn from that and make the necessary corrections.
It's interesting you do the analysis of juxtaposing what the situation is in Kigali and what happens in Ghana, especially when we all practice Sanitation Day or we observe Sanitation Day, but the success or level of involvement is different. Who would you blame? I mean, has CONEWAS tried to diagnose what the problem is as to why our Sanitation Day is, one, not sometimes effectively communicated, and two, the level of involvement of citizens is so low, and three, probably the approach taking as well. Have you been able to analyze all these and where the problem is?
I mean, we have done a preliminary, assessment. You know, during the launch of the National Sanitation Campaign, if you remember, the president, proposed very fantastic ideas. The question we ask ourselves is, are we going to implement these? And implementation has always been our problem. Sometimes we have the best of policies, strategies, plans, programs, but we are unable to implement them, or we implement them poorly. So that has been one of the issues. Secondly, you know, our programs have not been coordinated. Somehow, some way, we think that one ministry will be able to address all that. And so we don't have the multi-sectoral collaboration that we need to be able to address our sanitation. Apart from that, we have uncoordinated plans. And these are not long-term. You see, we seem to think that we can do the things within the next 2-3 years, 1-2-3 years. Forgetting that sanitation is a long-term business, and you need to plan ahead for it. That is what we have not been able to do. Otherwise, in terms of policies, strategies, plans, we have all of them. But we have not been able to keep our people in line to be able to address our sanitation. Let me also add that civil society advocacy has been quite low. And that is why we have decided that going forward, we are going to hold policymakers and duty bearers to account for whatever they have said they were going to do to improve the sanitation situation. But if we are able to do that, I think we should be able to go far.
I see. But why would the civil society's focus be on the authorities and what they have said they were going to do, which I'm not questioning that, but shouldn't you be looking at a two-pronged approach where while you are getting or demanding accountability from the institutions, how about the citizens as well? I mean, because this whole objective of making Accra the cleaner city, it's a dual responsibility.
We constantly engage. So when it comes to community mobilization, our members are already on the ground, and we are doing our best. But you see, what the citizens keep asking is, have the politicians, have the policymakers, have the duty bearers done what they committed to do? So when they begin to do those things, then we can also see results or some action from the public. But let me add, finally, that you see, when it comes to capacity, it's one of the issues we have when it comes to the sanitation industry. Many of the waste management companies do not have adequate capacity. If you take, for example, I can mention about 3 or so that I know are doing quite well in the sector. Zoomlion is obviously one of them. They have, for me, the best capacity in the industry. You have Jekura Ventures, you have Gist and the Usu and all that.
Right.
But many others do not have the capacity. And until they have the capacity to be able to deal with waste management and receive the necessary resources and financing from government, then we will continue to be talking about the issues when we know exactly what we should do to improve the situation.
Zion, maybe finally, maybe in a minute, if you can help me. Are there best practices that must inform our sanitation strategy? And that is if we even understand or we've properly tried to get the real problem as we are confronted with in terms of sanitation. Do we really understand this?
Yes, my brother, we do. We do. If you come to the sanitation sector, the understanding is clear. We know exactly what we should do. The best practices are available. We know which countries are doing well and what they did. It's a matter of adopting or adapting some of these models and contextualizing it to ensure that our country benefits from, their best practices. I think we know what to do, and we should be bold enough to take those decisions to improve the sanitation situation, because it has consequences for all aspects of life: health, education, food security, poverty reduction, and all others.
Zion, thank you for your time this evening.
Welcome.
Atayin is Vice Chair of the Coalition of Non-Governmental Organizations in Water and Sanitation. That's CONEWAS. Having a conversation on this. But meanwhile, the Managing Director of the Accra Compost and Recycling Plant, Dr. Richard Amponsa, has dismissed claims by the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Joseph Kofi Adda, that the company is currently not operational. In an exclusive interview with TV3, Dr. Amponsa said the minister has been ill-informed aside the mandatory shutdown for maintenance purposes in December. The company has been fully up and running.
I want to use this opportunity to correct that and say that the plant is not shut down. The plant is in operation the whole of this year. The only time that we did shut the plant was in December when we were doing our normal routine maintenance, which was, so it was shut from 24th to 28th of December last year. And that was just a routine maintenance. It is done annually to maintain the facility. But apart from that, from January till now, the plant is working. This month and last month, they have been documentary on Accra Compost and Recycling Plant. Almost daily, every time you open the television, is there documentary on our operations. Why would we be doing documentary when we are not operational?
He added that the key to proper waste management in the country is for authorities to focus on more transfer stations for waste collectors.
We need more. They are far away. If you are here, for example, if you collect waste here, do you have to travel all the waste away to Achimota to go and dispose of the waste? No. We must have strategic transfer stations. These transfer stations are well kept. And at the transfer stations, we put the waste in a longer truck, say a 40-footer truck, and these trucks are sent to, say, Accra Compost and Recycling Plant or to an engineer landfill site. And when we do that, we will not entertain waste.
It's live here on News at 10, live on News Up here at Desawe in Ghana. We're also live all across the world on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. We'll be back shortly with some more stories. Don't stay. Welcome back to News at 10. The police has scaled up its patrols in Accra in a renewed effort to fight crime. Our reporter Peter Kwadato joined one of the patrol teams and has come through with the following report.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Come last break, form up, ready for your briefing and deployment.
Commanders and other senior officers took turns to address the teams.
We need to do our work with confidence. And as we deploy you to the various locations, please make sure that you abide by that. Go according to the defined area of responsibility.
Psych yourself up. Going out there on patrols connotes that we're going to deal with the bad guys, the criminals out there. And you should be very, very, very circumspect in exercising your judgment.
When you leave here, you should have it at the back of your mind that you are closing at 0600 hours. I hope that's clear.
Yes, sir.
There should not be any excuse whatsoever when they call you on set and you are not responding.
Remember to be in constant touch with the monitoring officers. They know the terrain better, so they can give you directives. Please don't isolate yourself and make sure that you embark on teamwork. We are not looking for heroes, but we are looking for good team players. Am I okay with you?
Yes, sir.
The deployment, which was to start at about 5:30 p.m., took off at 6:15. Personnel had to be moved in batches due to the transport constraints. Others have to wait for the morning teams to return and the vehicles refueled for 9 duties. Despite the logistical challenges, the teams were fired up.
As we are going, wherever we shall put our foot, Father, give that race to us. Amen. Let us go in peace and come back home in peace. Amen. So that at the end of everything, all glory shall be given to you.
The Greater Accra region has recorded a number of brazen daylight
Great job by the police there, and they need the support of everybody. It's a collaborative and collective effort to ensure that we take charge of our own security, whilst the police also does their job. So let's all do our best to volunteer information to them while they help us calm life with the Operation Calm Life they've deployed. But the management of the Ghana Free Zones Authority has defended the 10-year tax holiday enjoyed by companies on free zones. Business analysts have criticized the huge tax exemption, which they argue undermines the country's revenue mobilization efforts. But according to the Chief Executive Officer of the authority, Michael Ochebefi, the country rakes in a lot more revenue within the 10-year period.
A free zone company can be located either in any of the exports processing zones or anywhere in the country upon the approval of the Ghana Free Zones Authority. Companies operating under the Free Zones program are entitled to both monetary and non-monetary incentives. The monetary incentives offered include 100% exemption from the payment of direct and indirect duties and levies on all imports for production and exports from free zones, 100% exemption from the payment of income tax on profits for 10 years, which will not exceed 8% thereafter, and total exemption from the payment of withholding taxes from dividends arising out of the free zone investment. Some analysts have argued the huge tax exemption undermines the country's revenue mobilization efforts, but CEO of the authority, Kofi Befi, disagrees.
You are giving 10 years tax exemption to a company. What's the company also bringing on board? The company is bringing employment opportunity. The companies are also bringing transfer of technology. The companies are also bringing transfer of set skills and competences. So I guess the advantages we get as a nation is enormous. And for me, I think we should still maintain the 10 years.
He wants local companies to take advantage of the tax incentives and exemptions and register.
Because we have seen that a lot of people who are doing well locally, I'm talking about the entrepreneurs and businessmen, they may have financial muscles, they may have the capacity to do big businesses or to even be registered as free zones enterprise, but they don't know the concept, they don't understand it. So we want to create the awareness for people to know about it, that free zones is not for only those coming from Europe or America or Eastern Europe, but Ghanaians can also benefit from free zones.
Only 34 out of 201 companies operating within the free zones are local. The program is designed to promote the processing and manufacturing of goods through the establishment of exports promotion zones and encourage the development of commercial and service activities at sea and airport areas.
President of Imani Ghana, Franklin Cudjoe, says Commander Sugar Factory was a failed project even before the construction started. He explained that then government had no business in revamping and running of the sugar factory. He indicated current government should learn lessons from this as it rolls out the one district, one factory.
That thing was, it never existed. Why are we making it look as if the Commander Sugar Factory was actually built? It never existed. There were just structures that were never going to be economically viable.
The Commander Sugar Factory has been closed for 2 years. President of the think tank group Imani, Franklin Cudjoe, questioned what went into the decision to establish the Commander Sugar Factory, which was expected to create 7,000 direct and indirect jobs.
Back in the 70s, it was thought that the capital needed was $90 million to get it, to resuscitate it, right? Now you started with 36 million and you needed at least, you need 7,000 hectares if you want to maintain throughput. Then you needed to think about where to offload the 46,000 tons of sugar that would have been produced, assuming everything was done properly. None of these were done. No, nothing was, the sort was done. So that's what I'm saying, that the factory never existed. It was dead on arrival. It never was.
He hoped lessons are being learned for proper implementation of government's One District, One Factory initiative.
I suspect even the government put it on the front page in order to buy some capital, but it's warning to them as well. As they roll out 1DF, 1F, they should learn lessons. It's very important. And by the way, the state has no business in organizing, running factories. It's a principle that is an age-old principle. We're learning something, but the lessons have got to be learned properly.
Minister for Employment and Labour Relations questioned the kind of agronomic studies that were done before the factory was set up.
When we had it wrong was that we should have actually started the cultivation of sugarcane before reactivating the factory. Because we rather started with reactivating the factory before even going into the production of sugarcane in Mauritius. I was told that the mere sugar production alone can at best help you to break even. But what sustains them is that they have added additional business of using the wastage in the production of energy, which they sell to the national grid. So it is that which they make from that helps them to be able to make surpluses.
Well, they say the government has no business doing business, but that question has been debated as well. But on that note, we want to thank you for spending 30 minutes with us. Your news at 10. It came to you live on News Hub here at Desawe in Kano. Technical production headed by Babena Finn Walker and also production by Ebenezer Jakumbat and the rest of the team. I want to say thank you. My name is Alfred Okanse. Do have a good evening and a great weekend.